The most realistic way to talk about what this is not to talk about it. That's why silence is so often spoken of. Stillness is so often spoken of. To sit still and be silent is closer to what so than anything that we can say. And then, in addition to that, anything that we can say takes something that has no limits, takes something that is infinite, and brings it into some finite form to be spoken of, which is all that we can do. And that's why meditation is so important, because in meditation, it is a matter of simply being rather than speaking or even thinking, but simply being, experiencing being. And even that's challenging for us, because the mind has so become accustomed and so conditioned to identifying with everything that happens, that even if we sit and meditate, that the way that that will be processed is that I am meditating. So that it still becomes a dualistic experience. It's just the letting go. It's just a matter of letting go. When we talk about meditation being a non-dual experience, what we mean by that is that all that is happening is all that is happening. There's nothing outside of it, including the you that's thinking, including the you that's trying not to think. All of it is just what's happening, and there's nothing outside of it. I mean, obviously, if it was easy, then it could be packaged and sold. If it was easy, it would be something that would be the way things are in the world. But obviously, it's not easy, because in order to be in this world, nobody escapes the conditioning process. Nobody escapes the conditioning process. And not only does nobody escape the conditioning process, but nobody escapes the complete sense of reality that pervades the human experience. The complete sense of reality that pervades the human experience, meaning that we live in a world in which almost everybody considers themselves to be a person. We live in a world in which almost everybody considers themselves to be a body. We live in a world in which almost everybody considers time and space to be real, and the material world to be real. And not only is it a matter of people considering that to be true, but we live in a world where the people who are supposed to know, the scientists, insist that that's true, that that is real, and they can prove it's true, and they can prove it's real. Although at the same time that's the case, they readily admit that they do not know what consciousness is. And the reason that that's the case is because everything that they prove is real in the world, everything that's material in the world, everything that they can do research on and experiments with, all fits the same. All of that fits into the same definition, meaning that it meets the characteristics that scientists say define reality. Those characteristics are that it exists in time, that it has mass, right? It takes up space, right? And it has volume. It can be weighed. Everything that is real must meet those requirements, and everything in the world does meet those requirements, except for consciousness. Consciousness doesn't take up space. It doesn't persist in time. It doesn't have any volume. And therefore, it cannot be researched. It cannot be measured. It cannot be experimented with. And yet it does exist. There's no question about that. So the scientists call it the difficult problem, right? The difficult problem. And only now is there becoming a more unified understanding of things. That's why the Dalai Lama has been meeting every year with top world physicists and psychologists to share information. And the Dalai Lama has said very clearly, because these meetings are all on the internet if you want to watch them. And he said very clearly, if scientists can explain something in a way that makes sense in accord with what we understood, but is different from our understanding of it, we have no problem with accepting that. So there's an exchange going on. But the reality of it is, and this is the bottom line, the reality of it is that given both sides agree that reality is non-conceptual. Both sides agree that reality, in other words, as much as we know about it and as much as we can predict what will happen with science and quantum mechanics and so forth, we still agree that we don't know what's happening. You know, that what actually exists is non-conceptual, it's unexplainable. Language can't replicate it. I mean, if you read a lot of what Einstein said, especially toward the end of his life, he was talking very spiritualistically and non-scientifically at all. Because, you know, his greatest discovery was relativity, right? Which basically proved that there was no real thing called time, right? Because if the speed of light, if you travel at the speed of light, nothing changes. So now what happened to time, you see? So to him, that opened up a whole new realm of possibilities that I'm sure blew his mind. And when it came to some of the other things that got discovered afterward, he was just puzzled by the whole thing. But as far as we're concerned, the thing that is most important for us to deal with is our own existence, our own human life, and the implications that are involved in our own human life, and the possibilities that are involved in our own human life. Because most of us are not interested in discovering the farthest reaches of science and quantum mechanics. Most of us are interested in being happy. Most of us are interested in being at home and relaxed and experience some sense of certainty about reality. And what the spiritual teachers tell us is that that's immediately available to all of us at all times. And so it's not a matter of getting somewhere, it's not a matter of learning something, it's a matter of simply letting go of whatever obscurations or obstacles are in the way of what's already the case. And thus meditation becomes a useful practice in order to do that. And the thing that I read earlier, I read it because, I don't know about you, but every day it seems like, really? You know what I mean? It's like, really? It's like, if you think back not that long ago, right? And somebody told you what is happening today, you would say, nah, right? Nah, that couldn't happen, right? And if that's the case about now, what might be true next, you see? So it makes it all that more relevant to really get to the bottom line in terms of what our true nature is. Not just because of that, but because of the fact that we are all in this time continuum. We're all in this time and space continuum where all of these things are happening. And in the end of it all, In the end of it all, the body drops. In the end of it all, we die. You know, to realize the absolute truth in terms of, you know, who you are as a spiritual being, in no way, remember, awareness is inclusive, not exclusive. In no way excludes your humanness. And not only does it not exclude your humanness, it allows it to have its full expression. And what I mean by that is that the awareness that we are totally gives itself to being human. Do you understand? It totally gives itself to being human. And so by virtue of that, all the human emotions are valid. They're valid, you know, because it's true. Well, it's true that, you know, it kind of goes back to the thing that, you know, when we talk about these things, often we say, well, you're not the person, you're not the body, you know. It's a negation process. This process is a negation process. But it's also a circular process, and that's why the enso exists. There's a circle. And the enso exists, and it's a circular process because when you come back around to the truth, that what you started out saying you're not ends up being what you are. You see, we are not the body. Well, we're saying that the reason we start there is because everybody thinks they are only the body. So we have to do a negation of that, right? But then after you get further along in the awakening process, it comes back to be seen that there's nothing but the awareness, and the body and the person are the awareness in a limited form, where the awareness has willingly forgotten itself in order to be in this time and space world. But there's nothing but the awareness. And therefore, it doesn't exclude any of the aspects of the experience of being a human being in time and in space. But you see, when you have both of it, when you have both sides of it handled, see, for most people, they only know the one side, you know, that I am the body, I am the person. When you have the other side, that I am awareness itself, we talk about balance. Buddha talked about balance, right? We talk about there being a balance. So you can experience fully all the emotions of a human being, right? And at the same time experience that is a limited expression of awareness, and that in reality, nothing's actually happened.
See, for a while, I thought that was duality, but it's not. It's coexistence.
That's right. The truth is non-dual. You could look at it as saying, you could look at it this way, that if all life is a play and we're all actors in a play, like Shakespeare said, right? That the truth is that you're fully lost in the play. To be a great actor, you lose yourself in the act. You lose yourself in the role that you're playing, right? And so you fully experience all the emotions that are involved in that. At the very same time that's true, it's not true that you're simply acting out the act. And when both things can be held together, there is an experience that I'm sure only the greatest actors experience. Maybe that's why Shakespeare wrote such profound things, right? Great actor.